Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Thank you for joining me for this video. If you clicked on this video, then either you are interested in the Enneagram or somebody is sending you this video because they're telling you, you got to learn about the Enneagram. It's going to change your life. And you're looking at this saying, okay, what is this? What does this mean? Why is my friend so excited about this? Why is everybody talking about this? Today, we're going to break down what is the Enneagram and how is it helpful? How is it useful? And so that you can have a better understanding and decide if you want to learn more about it. Before we begin this journey, let me just say that everything you hear on this video could be very offensive to you. That's kind of the nature of the Enneagram. It gets under our skin and exposes our blind spots and our shortcomings, and every one of these is rooted in a dominant sin. And it's never comfortable to talk about lust or gluttony or sloth. And these can be sometimes unnerving if you've never heard this before, because you're going to feel a little bit exposed. And you might be watching this with your wife or husband or your kids, and there could be this uncomfortable moment where you feel like, I don't want people to know this about me. Like, this kind of feels uncomfortable. And just realize that this is unlike any of the other personality systems, because this one really does kind of dig at you beneath the surface. If you'll spend time thinking about it, it will challenge you and really help you see some things about yourself that maybe you've always known but didn't know how to put into words. And it will put them into words for you very clearly. And that can be an uncomfortable experience sometimes for many of us. But that's a good kind of discomfort. It's kind of like going to the dentist. Nobody wants to go to the dentist, right? But it's a good kind of discomfort that actually helps improve your ability to relate to others and your ability to relate to life around you. So if we're going to move forward, we have to be able to see things the way they are. And the Enneagram helps you see things the way they are. It doesn't put you in a box. It just shows you the box you're already in. And then you can decide how much do you want to let that box limit and control you. Okay, so let's break it down. Essentially, what the Enneagram suggests is that there's 9 basic personality types. And you are already one of these types, whether you realize it or not. And then once you understand this, you go, oh, I understand. This is how I'm wired, and this is how the people I love, this is how they're wired. And the hope is as you understand more about your motivations, your impulses and compulsions, you can end up a little more compassionate with yourself and the people around you, and have better connections and see what's stopping you sometimes from being able to move forward in life. So 9 basic personality types, and all of them have names, but the people in your life that talk about the Enneagram, they probably just use the number for each type. They'll say, oh my gosh, you're such a 4. Oh my goodness, he's such an 8. And people will use those numbers, but really there's a name for every type. And we're going to look at those names, and hopefully you either know your type or you're starting to figure out what your type is. I'm very excited about the Enneagram. I mean, I'm so excited that I even lost my job over it, and I'll put a link to that video in the description. So when people learn about the Enneagram, a lot of people learn about it and they go, oh, well, that's really cool. That's very helpful. But then there are some of us, they get so excited about it and we become little Enneagram warriors. Okay, let's start to break this down. There are 3 main centers on the Enneagram. So the people up at the top, 8, 9, and 1, they are in a center. It's called the gut center. Sometimes it's called the anger center. But they're all kind of dealing with the same problem. The problem that they deal with is the question, why is everything broken? Why do people make dumb decisions? How come people don't listen to each other? How come they try to control each other? How come our bodies wear out? And so they're basically asking the problem, like, why is everything broken? Why do people not follow the rules? And why do people do things that hurt each other? And then 2s, 3s, and 4s, they're in a different center, which is called the worth and value center, sometimes called the heart center or the feeling center. And 2s, 3s, and 4s, they're all basically dealing with this question of, where does my worth and value come from? I mean, how do I know that I matter? And what's unique about me? And what's my role and purpose in this world? Which is a great question. All of us need to ask these questions. But 2s, 3s, and 4s, they kind of are operating with that framework or that question in mind. And then 5, 6, and 7, they're all dealing with a problem. They're called the head center or the fear center. And they're dealing with the problem, how do we say we're okay in this scary world? Like sharks are trying to kill us and coconuts are falling on our heads, and it's a frightening world where the animals want to eat us. And are we safe in this world as it is? And 5, 6, and 7, they're all dealing with that problem. Now, to be fair, you're going to hear a lot of things from my perspective that are going to be a little different than maybe some of the books that you would read. Now, when I first learned about the Enneagram, I read a ton of books. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them right there on the shelves behind me. I tried to absorb as much information as I could, and I really gave myself an education on the Enneagram, like highlighting and underlining and writing things down and making videos about what I was learning. And all of those are available on this channel way back from years ago. But I've also been privileged to be able to have thousands of appointments with people, thousands of coaching appointments with people. And you learn the Enneagram from reading, but you also learn it from talking to these people about their type. And so you're going to hear a lot of things in my videos that are kind of Thomisms. And I guess my thinking sometimes gets a little bit inbred, but I'm okay with that because there's just some things that I've learned along the way from having conversations with people about their type that I would have never learned from the reading or from the books. And I share a lot of that in my videos, the things that I'm learning in my perspective. Okay, so let's start with 8s, 9s, and 1s. Now, why would we start with 8? Doesn't it seem like we should start with 1? And we could. We could start with the first type, but we're looking at them in terms of the centers they're in, okay? So the first center, 8, 9, and 1, that gut center or that anger center that are all dealing with this question of like, why do people do stupid things and why is everything broken? How come relationships fall apart? Notice that in all of these centers, there's going to be one type that sort of goes with the problem, one type that goes against the problem, and one type that tries to overcome the problem. And when you look at this, 8s, they kind of go with the anger, like, yeah, it's good to feel your anger. And then 9s, oh, I don't like to feel anger. I go against the anger. And then 1s, I try to fix everything so that I don't have to be angry. I'm trying to overcome it. Also, you're going to notice that in these groups, there's one type that's assertive, one type that's withdrawn, and one type that is compliant. And compliant doesn't always mean easy to get along with. It means they show up and sort of look at the stuff in their world and then comply their energy to taking care of those problems in the present moment. So 8s are the assertive type, 9s are the withdrawn type, and 1s are the compliant type. And that's true all the way around, is you're going to find one type that goes with the problem, one type that goes against the problem, and one type that tries to overcome the problem in that center, and one type that's assertive, one type that's withdrawn, one type that's compliant. Okay. Now, let's start with 8. 8 is called the challenger. Now, I'm going to put some pictures up on the screen of people that I think represent 8ness. Now, it's really hard when you try to type celebrities, and you're probably not going to know all these celebrities, but if you just look at this picture, you're going to get a general sense of what 8s are about. Just by looking at them, you can kind of pick up an energy or a vibe. And some of us are really good at picking up vibes, and others of us not so much. But maybe you're a vibe person and you look at the 8s and you go, oh yeah, I get a vibe from this. And basically the vibe is, don't mess with me. And 8s are called the challenger. And these people tend to be big, strong, bold people who feel like they have a right to just sort of turn all of the dials in their life to adjust what they want. And if they want something to be different, then they feel a responsibility to go out there and adjust things to make it happen. So you could kind of say that they're the kind of people that say, whatever's going on in the moment, they sort of think to themselves, something should be done about this. And don't tell me what to do. They do have that kind of pushback of, don't tell me what to do. You could say they have the need to be against. But 8s tend to be big, strong people that are very focused on power and who's in power and are they using their power correctly. They don't want to be controlled by others. 8s have a line. Notice this symbol. It looks like a star, but it's not really a star. It's really just lines to show how these types kind of move around a little bit. So 8s, They have wings on either side, a 7 wing and a 9 wing. And every 8 you meet, they'll be a little 7ish, upbeat, positive, fun loving, and charming, or they'll be a little 9ish, laid back, withdrawn, quiet. But you're going to have one wing that tends to be dominant and one wing that tends to be less dominant. So when you meet an 8, you might meet an 8 wing 7, or you might meet an 8 wing 9. And when you hear that term wing, that's what people mean is they recognize their dominant type, but they do lean a little bit into this other type. And so maybe like when they're meeting people or when they're out visiting, you might see them be a little bit under a little tiny bit of stress. You might see them look a little bit more like their wing. Okay, so 8s, they have a line to 5 and a line to 2. One line is called your disintegration path. In other words, when things are not going well and you're a little bit stressed out or you're a little bit overcome or you're not feeling yourself, 8s might look a little bit like a 5. And 5 is called the investigator. So let me just start there. You might see an 8 under stress asking a lot of questions. Where were you? Why didn't you answer my phone call? Who's to blame? And you might see him becoming a little bit more like an investigator. But 5s are also a withdrawn type. So you might see an 8 under stress withdrawing and saying, I don't want to talk anymore. I'm not going to have this conversation with you. I'm going to get my keys and I'm out of here. And that's when you know an 8 is not doing so well, they're under a lot of stress, is you'll see them withdrawing away and getting quiet and being more cold and callous and unfeeling and detached, a little bit like the 5. In health, you'll see an 8 look a little bit like a 2. And notice how I use that words look a little bit like. You don't become the other type. An 8 never becomes a 5. An 8 never becomes a 2. But in those moments, you might see them reflect some of the aspects of that type. So 8s might look a little bit like a 2. 2 is a compliant type. 2 is called the giver or the helper. So when an 8 is doing well and they're for you and they believe that you're for them and you're not going to betray them, then an 8 might show up in a more helpful, thoughtful, kind, compliant, caring way, empowering other people. So you get the idea. One number you disintegrate to under stress, the other number you integrate to. Now, you could argue that you pick up a little bit of the characteristics, positive and negative, from both. And a lot of people do, and I'm fine with that. I can see that for sure. So sometimes 8s can be like a 5 in that they become more thoughtful and reflective, and 8s can look like some of the unhealthy aspects of a 2 as well. But typically, the way the Enneagram is explained is there's a number you integrate to and a number you disintegrate to. So that's enough about the 8. Let's move on to the 9. So 9, that's the type that goes against the anger. This is the type that doesn't look angry at all, usually. Every once in a while, if you push on them enough, you might see a 9 get really angry, like the dormant volcano. But 9s tend to be easygoing, peaceful people who value comfort and harmony, and they want everybody to be heard and every opinion to be validated, and they tend to do a really good job of making space for other people to express themselves and work through their problems. 9s are called the peacemakers. Now, when they're not doing so good, they're kind of more like a peacekeeper, like, what do I need to do to not upset everybody? And I'll just go along with everybody else's agenda. But when they're healthier, by the way, notice I'm using this term healthy. So there's healthy types and there's unhealthy types, or average healthy types. And you're going to hear Enneagram teachers talk like that. So when a 9 is not doing well, the peacemaker, you might see them notice the line to 6, and the sin of 6 is fear. By the way, every one of these types has a dominant sin. The dominant sin of the 8 is lust. They just kind of go out there believing that they have the right to move things around and take things and use other people and their stuff, and a loyalty to themselves. 9s, the sin is sloth. They have a hard time sometimes knowing their own agenda or taking action that they need to take. They might avoid the one thing they need to do and do a lot of other things that are not as necessary. But 9s disintegrate to 6, and the sin of the 6 is fear. So under stress, you might see a 9 getting anxious, panicked, worried, and then complying, because 6 is a compliant type. You might see the withdrawn 9 really trying to just comply to make everybody happy and not making a lot of decisions because I don't want people to be upset. So under stress, a 9 will look a little bit like a 6. In health, 9s look like the assertive 3. Setting goals, the 3 is the achiever. right? The performance. So they're setting goals, they're moving forward, they're accomplishing things, and they're feeling very productive and looking very productive. Okay, so notice when you see the pictures of the nines, notice a different vibe than, for example, the eight. And look at how these contrast with one another. And notice, like in terms of wings, how they both need each other. Every nine needs a little bit of that eightness, to be able to tell people no. And every eight needs a little bit of that calm, easygoing nineness. And when something's not working for you as an eight, you might ask yourself, how could I lean a little bit more into this easygoing nine, try to understand other people's opinions, understand other people's perspectives. Maybe I don't need to say everything I'm thinking. And so we lean a little bit into these wings to help balance us so that we can be a little more easy to love and easy to get along with in life. Let's take a look at type 1. Type 1 is called the perfectionist or the reformer. And ones, they tend to be good people who are very focused on doing the right thing and being responsible, and they don't want to be lazy or come across as lazy people. So these are the people that step up to the plate and make sure that we get our work done. The managers among us, that come early and stay late, and they make sure all the shelves are put away the way they're supposed to be. And these are very responsible people who feel a great sense of responsibility and don't want to be bad. They don't want to be corrupt, which is a great thing. It's a wonderful thing. It's just that they could be a little hard on themselves and sometimes be a little hard on others, and a little judgmental at times, you might say. The sin of the one is anger. And this is the type that tries to, fix whatever is causing the anger, that the eight goes with it, the nine goes against it, and the one tries to overcome it. If we had the right laws, the right guidelines, the right policies, then people wouldn't be able to do the stupid things that are tearing the world apart. And there's a lot of sense to that. So ones under stress, they might look a little bit like a four. The four is the individualist or the dramatist. And what this means is under stress, you might see a one looking a little moody, feeling misunderstood. I'm the only one that's trying to do everything right. I'm the only adult in the room. And how come I'm the problem? I'm not a part of this group anymore and I don't feel understood. And you might see the one looking a little withdrawn, emotional, and dramatic, and that kind of thing. In health, ones look like sevens. By the way, I'm a seven. Health, you'll see ones being more upbeat and playful, assertive. Think about a one on vacation going to Disney World with all their family and everything is right. And, and they're playful and they're more relaxed and everybody loves it when, you're healthy and you're not under stress. That's when people would say you're probably at your best. If I see a one bouncing and skipping with their kids and having a good time, then I know, oh, they're not under stress. They're doing really well. Look, are they childlike seven? No, they're really just a one, but they're having a good day. Okay, let's move down to the heart center or the feeling center. And this is going to include type 2, 3, and 4. And remember, there's one type that is compliant, type 2, one type assertive, type 3, and one type withdrawn, type 4. One type that goes with the problem, one type that goes against the problem, and one type that overcomes the problem. Now, remember, the problem in the worth and value center is, how do we know that we matter? How do we know that we have worth and value? Yes, I want to be connected, but I also have to have some sense of significance. And twos, threes, and fours all sort of stand out in some way. Twos, the helper or the giver, is the type that tries to overcome this problem. And their sin is literally the opposite of shame or worth and value. It's the sin of pride. And twos, they're unlike everybody else because they're nice and kind and caring and loving. And what about this sin of pride? Well, pride sort of says, I'm here to help you people. I'm the servant in the room. I'm the nurse to take care of all the people and their problems. And sometimes it can be hard for twos to express their own needs to other people because they are not comfortable and they don't want to be selfish. So they don't want to come across as a needy person who is focused on themselves. Twos under stress can look a little bit like an eight. So you might see the two becoming assertive, demanding, vocalizing their needs more and being more direct when they're under stress. In health, twos integrate, notice the line to type 4. Twos are able to go more inward, knowing more about themselves, reflecting on what matters to them, and not feel so responsible for taking care of everybody else. They're able to focus a little more attention on themselves and you might say resting, recovering, withdrawing, and then just pursuing their own interests. If you see it too by themselves, painting or doing glass making or some hobby, then you might realize, oh, they're doing pretty good. They don't feel as responsible for everyone else, and they're able to take a little bit of time to invest in their own interest in themselves. Now, type threes, this is the type that tries to overcome the problem by being an achiever and or being a performer. So think, if you struggle with worth and value, then go out and be a person of value. Go do something of value. Go overcome the obstacles, win all of the tournaments or the contests and put all of those trophies on your shelf, and then you will demonstrate to the world your value. And threes overcome their obstacles, and you could say they try to overcome the problem. Now, under stress, threes could look a little bit like a 9. Remember the peace-loving 9 whose sin is comfort? Well, the three's sin is deceit. And they could mean that they just tell you lies or cover up the parts of their story that don't flatter them so much. But sometimes deceit can also just be the self-deceit of believing that your value really does come from your accomplishments and achievements. And so threes under stress look a little bit like a 9, meaning they might feel like they can't get ahead. And so what's the point? I'm just showing up. I'm physically present, but I'm no longer really engaged in what I'm doing. And you could see a 3 just kind of lose their spark and lose their excitement and just sort of show up, but not much else. And in that sense, they could look a little slothful like a 9. And then also threes in health look like a 6. In other words, the assertive type becomes a compliant type. And they start to join the team and ask others, how can I benefit you? How can I share my challenge and my inspiration with you so that the whole team can excel and move forward and do amazing things? Now, an unhealthy 3, see, they've got to be the best and they've got to outperform everybody else. But a healthy 3, they join the team and inspire others to achieve more than they would ever dream possible. Let's move to 4. 4 is called the individualist or the dramatist, or sometimes called the healer. And obviously, 4s, when you look at the pictures, they certainly stand out. And they sort of go with the shame. 3s try to overcome it, 2s go against it, and 4s just kind of accept it. Like, don't you guys see that we're all broken? Don't you guys see that the experience is somehow, not what it ought to be? And 4s, they find a sense of significance by being unlike other people, by standing out, being unique, being special, being creative, and being different. And obviously, when you look at those pictures, 4s can be different in a lot of ways, but it's not that typical 3 way of excelling. And it's not in that way like 2s of being kind, courteous, loving, and sweet. It's just more like differentiating themselves away from the group. And 4s, this can sometimes backfire on them and make things difficult for them or the people that are in relationship with them. 4s under stress might look a little bit like a 2, feeling very needy, feeling like they have to be nice, feeling like they have to be sort of a fake person. Not that 2s are fake, but from a 4's perspective, this sweet, kind person who's patching things up. When you see a 4 looking like that, you might realize that they're maybe feeling a little bit alone or isolated or under stress. 4s integrate and they look like a type 1 in health. So when everything's going well and the 4 can sort of moderate or manage their deep emotional volatility, they're able to focus more on being productive and being compliant in a healthy way of getting their work done and focusing on doing what needs to be done. And so when you see a 4 showing up to work on time and staying focused on their tasks, then you might realize, oh, look at this 4 doing pretty well. They're able to sort of moderate their deep emotional things and able to show up fully and be present to what needs to be done today. Okay, we're going to move away from the worth and value or the heart center, and we're going to move over to the fear center or the head center. And that's going to include types 5, 6, and 7. Now, 5s are the withdrawn type, 6s are the compliant type, and 7 is the assertive type. 5s are the ones that try to overcome the problem. 6s go with the problem and announce to everyone that there's a problem. And 7s, they kind of go against the problem. What is the problem for 5, 6, and 7? It's how do we live in this scary world? There's a world filled with diseases. There's animals and people that want to kill us. And how are we supposed to pretend like everything's okay? How are we safe? How do we know that we're safe? And 5s, they sort of withdraw from this and try to overcome this by their knowledge, by their understanding of the world, by their investigation of the world, and also their detachment from the world. Like, I'm not going to let that affect me. So I'm sort of living behind a wall, trying to understand everything without being so affected by the things that could overtake me in this world. So 5s tend to be very sensitive about space and boundaries and other people trying to take away the focus of their attention. And 5s are called the investigator or the observer. And they are people that are very focused often on information and understanding things and being around the people who do have the understanding. And under stress, 5s might look a little bit like a 7, kind of bouncing around from one interest to another without making any real progress or ever really starting that business or turning in their dissertation, sort of feeling like they need something outside of themselves in order to fulfill themselves. And then in health, you might see a 5 look a little bit like an 8, the challenger. You might see them being able to step up to the plate and provide the answers and information and instruction that is necessary in order to save the day. Being able to challenge people with the right information or challenge people's false belief systems. That's a 5 that oh, they've got some courage. They're able to step up into their space and own their space and save the day. Oh, by the way, the sin of the 5 is avarice or greed. Think of it as like, I don't want to share my attention with you. I know you did a good job, but I'm not going to tell you you did a good job. Or when people try to push in and get to know them, you might see them withholding information or withholding themselves from the interaction. And then it can also just look like greed, like I don't want to share my drink with you. Okay, let's talk about type 6s. 6s, they sort of go with the problem, like announcing to people, hey people, are you not aware? Are you prepared? Do you know what's coming next? Do you understand that the government's lying to us? Do you understand that the news is lying to us? And so 6s, they sort of wave the flags and blow the trumpets, and they want everybody to see that there are potential threats out there that we need to be paying attention to. A compliant type, complying to the environment that they are in. 6s, the sin really is just fear, and it could be a fear of a lot of things, and it may show up as general anxiety, but it could be specific to whatever is in their environment that feels threatening to them. But there's this underlying sense that things aren't right, and we need to stay together and be a team, and we need to have a plan, and we need to be prepared. And 6s under stress could look a little bit like a 3. In other words, they start to get more assertive. They try to get ahead of the problem. They feel like they need to prove something or prove their worth and value. Think like, don't fire me, Mr. Boss. Fire Tom. He's the one that didn't go to management training. And that need to like get ahead of this problem and feel like you got to outrun it and prove to everybody that you are a team player. And then think, in health, 6s can look a little bit like a 9. More relaxed. Everything's going to be okay. I've done all the work that I know I can do, and I've made all the plans I can. And so now I have to just let go and let God and just relax because there's nothing else I can do here. And when you see a 6 looking relaxed and looking like everything's okay, then oh, that 6 is doing really well. Okay, let's talk about 7s, the last one on our type. And again, I'm a type 7, wing 6. So 7s, they're called the enthusiast or the adventurer or the Epicurean. Epicureans were the kind of the alternate to Stoics. Stoics really are more like 5s, and Epicureans are more like eat, drink, and be merry. And this is the type that goes against the fear. Like, I'm not going to be afraid. There's so many wonderful things out there in the world. Go out there into the world and explore. And the sin of the 7 is gluttony, because you kind of got to ask, when is enough enough? It's always more is better. So these are the collectors, these are the connoisseurs that are always feeling like they need something outside of themselves or outside of their experience to make them happy. From their perspective, we're just trying to be happy, we're just trying to be satisfied, but it's kind of a never-ending pursuit, and sometimes we can make ourselves miserable and everybody else just trying to be happy, right? And exhaust ourselves. So 7s, when they're not doing well, they might look a little bit like a 1, kind of fine, we can't go to the park, so we're going to go to the museum because that's what the kids want to do. So look at me being the compliant, responsible adult, but I'm also kind of got the anger of the 1 and the frustration of the 1. When they're doing well, 7s look a little bit like a 5. Notice that line to 5. 7s become a little more withdrawn, not feeling like they need so much, and feeling like they can contain their energy a little bit more like a 5. And being able to focus that attention on something until they really sit with it and master it, and not feeling like they have to bounce around all the time to the next thing. So those are the basic 9 types. And now you can go a lot deeper. There's subtypes for every type. So there's a self-preservation 8, a social 8, and a sexual 8, or sometimes called a one-on-one. It doesn't mean sexy or anything like that, but it just means they tend to relate to people more directly one-on-one. And so you can investigate that. You can investigate other things about the Enneagram as well. Now, before we're done, let me just give you a really simple way to remember all of these, because sometimes you hear all this and you're like, gosh, there's so many types and I don't know. And you could give up and you could quit because it seems a little overwhelming. So let me give you a really simple little system, starting with type 9 and going around to the 8. Okay. So imagine the 9 is like the baby in the family. Like, I don't want much. I don't mean to be a problem. I don't need much. Just give me my blankie and my comfort food and my reruns on TV, and I'll try not to be a problem. And really, I don't want your problems either. I don't want to handle those. So there's the type 9, the baby in the family. Now let's look at type 1. Think of that as being like the proverbial dad figure in the family. Like, all right, guys, you got to do your homework before you can go outside and play. So the speaking style is preaching, right? You got to eat your vegetables before you can have dessert. And so the 1, do the right thing, be responsible. It's sort of this commanding voice of being responsible and doing the right thing. So let's just paint that as kind of being the dad figure. And then think about the 2 as being the nurturer, the caregiver, the traditional mom figure. Like, oh, honey, you did a great job. Oh, we're so proud of you. Do you need help cleaning your room? I'll come there and help you. Give me a hug. So that sort of warm, loving, nurturing, caregiving, traditional mom, okay? Then think of the 3 as being the oldest child in the family, the firstborn, the golden child, the peacock in the family. Look at me, Mom. Look what I can do. I can dive off of the high dive. I can ride my bike without training wheels. I just got elected president of the class. I just became the quarterback for the football team. I'm the head cheerleader. Look at me. Okay. So there's the 3, the firstborn. And then think of the 4 as being that other child in the family. Well, I can't do everything they can do. Where do I belong? How do I stand out? What makes me special? What makes me unique? Maybe I'm an artist. Maybe I'm a musician. Maybe I'm a creative, or maybe I'm goth, or maybe what is it that makes me stand out? Because I'm not like the other child. Now, think about that family now, that family unit. And imagine they're moving away from their small town in Missouri or their small town in Indiana, and they're moving to the big city in California or the big city of New York or the big city of Orlando. And they're going out into this world, right? So the kids, let's say the type 5, the investigator, is like that 12-year-old, 13-year-old awkward kid, that's going into this big middle school where there's more kids in the school than there was in their hometown. Now, you can see this 5 going out into this world a little overwhelmed, right? And keeping their distance and keeping their space and trying to understand how this new world works and how they're supposed to operate in this world without being so affected and overwhelmed by the bigness of this world out there. And okay, now think of the sixes as being like the 13-year-old or 14-year-old girls. Doesn't have to be girls, but think about like the little herd, the little pack of teenagers that are all doing the same thing, you know? Oh, you need to go to the bathroom? Okay, well, I'll go with you. Oh, you want to go bowling? Okay, let's go bowling. Let's call our friends. You want to go to the mall? Let's go to the mall. Let's go bowling. Then we're going to go to the movies. And so they all move together as a little community or as a little tribe, watching and guarding and protecting each other and keeping each other safe. And then think of the seven as being like the 16-year-old kid. I like to call it the cool kid, but think of like the 16-year-old kid who now has a job and a car and a girlfriend, and they look at the sixes. What is it you guys are doing? Bowling and a moving? Well, that sounds lame. I'm going to go do my own thing that is more exciting, more fun, more of an adventure. And so the seven kind of departs away from the group to do what is more fun, more exciting, and more adventure, doing their own thing. And then let's end with the eight, who is kind of like the 18-year-old, you know, that's moving out of the house and maybe moving in with their girlfriend or thinking about getting married. And so they got their little apartment or their little house, you know, and I'm an adult, but it's kind of that like sort of aggressive, you know, young person adult, like the sophomore, like, you know, I'm an adult and I don't care what you do on your side of the street, but don't think you can come here and tell me what to do because I'm in charge of me. You're not in charge of me. And if I want to put my car out there in the yard, then what business is it of yours? So it's kind of this young, aggressive, pushy kind of young adult, I'm my own person, I own my space kind of energy. And then you could go back to the nine, who started as the baby, but now is kind of like the grandpa. You know, just give me my blanket, give me my food and my TV, and I'll try not to be a problem, and I really don't want to have to solve your problems. So that's a good way to kind of go around. Notice, by the way, all of these are offensive. Now let's end by saying thank you for watching this video. I hope it's been helpful and encouraging to you. If there's something about this video that you appreciated, please like the video, subscribe to the channel for more great content about the Enneagram and other related things that'll help you have the best life possible and improve your relationships. So thank you for liking the video and following the channel, and put your comments below, and what else? Be present to life. Thank you guys, and I'll see you next time. Check out this playlist if you want to know more, and check out this video if you're interested in learning more about yourself and improving your life. Thank you guys. I appreciate you. Love you all. Have a great day.